Welcome to an introduction to Cult Crafter. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Rick Kitagawa, and this is my new tabletop game. So, Cult Crafter is a card game for 2 to 4 players. Game time's around 30 minutes, is kind of on the faster side for people who know what they're doing. Realistically, we know that's actually like 45 minutes to an hour. Anyway, the game is set in the world of the Order of the Dark Wheel, which is a cult that worships demons from the abyssal void. And so this is the game. This is a version of the game that is in Tabletop Simulator, and we are launching our crowdfunding campaign to get this made as a actual physical game March 13th through April 3rd. So if you're during that time period, please check us out. You can see a link in the description below. But anyway, so this is Cult Crafter. So there are 3 different decks. Woo. That was fun. I'm not great at Tabletop Simulator, sorry. But there is a resource deck, a cultist deck, and a god deck. And 3 different types of cards. You play as a former hierophant for this cult who's been promoted to a high cultist. You compete with other high cultists, aka the other players, to raise the most money, aka tributes, also like victory points, by fleecing hapless, expanding the message of the cult. The most profitable prophet wins, and that player gets to join the top of the pyramid as a member of the Order's Council of Shadows. So these are the 3 decks, and we'll go through each of them. When you start, each player gets 1 god, 3 cultists, and 2 resource cards. And so I have them face up just so you can see, but you would obviously keep your hand to yourself. So the gods, let's look at these. So the gods, you get to choose 1 god that basically is and so there are 2 types. There are single aspect gods and dual aspect gods. And so there are 7 different demonic aspects. There's blood, there's bone, darkness, which is the purple one, flesh, madness, pain, and rot, which is this green one. And so this god, Sanguinus Rex, is a single aspect god. For blood, the first Bog Witch, she is a dual aspect god. And you can see that, like, Sanguinus Rex, for every blood cultist you have in play, you gain 3 tribute at the end of the game. But you also lose 1 tribute for every darkness or rot cultist that you have in play, right? So they don't necessarily get along. You wouldn't want to have 2 gods, but if anything, you only get to have 1 god anyway. You can always replace your god, but because these are sort of what you are building your play area around, you can think of this as sort of like these aspects are kind of like the types of Pokemon if you play Pokemon, or kind of like the colors of cards in Magic the Gathering. I base this game on thinking about how can I make it interesting, simple card game that also has some aspects of like Ticket to Ride in terms of your matching colors of trains, but in this case you are matching aspects of your cult. So imagine this is a second player, this is our play area, and this is going to be like the shared play area. We can kind of move things over a little bit, but we'll get to these sect cards in a second. So we have a first Bog Witch. We can always draw more god cards, but that's just kind of an overview. You get 1 god, and that affects your entire cult, which is your whole play area. Okay, I'll get to the cultists in a second, but the resource cards, there are 2 types of cards. Conveniently, I drew 1 of each for this opening hand. You have an idol, and you can think of these as like permanents. You can have multiple idols, but they give you more tribute the more cultists you have that align with that idol. So offering of blood, gain 5 tribute for every 3 blood cultists you own. This isn't bad because I have 2 blood cultists in my hand. This is probably a pretty good draw. And then there's events, which sometimes can come into play as permanents, but generally think of them as like spells in other card games, or sort of like single event type cards. This one is kind of unique. The conspiracy theorist, once played, this becomes a copy of the follower above it. So it is like a spell, but turns into a permanent. If we look at these other 2 that this player drew, this one allows you to swap any 2 followers you own, so you can move placement around. Arcane Knowledge allows you to basically draw 3 from one deck, choose one to keep, and then you shuffle the other 2 back. So you get to kind of pick the best card of the 3 that you like. So the other thing is finally the cultist. So these are sect cards. You have 3 of them. Each player has 3 of them. They just kind of roll out, and you'll notice that they have a number and a little blood arrow going up and a number in blood going down. This is the number of cultists on each side of the sect that you're allowed to play. So this sect holds 1 cultist up here, 2 down here, 1 and 3, 1 and 4. So pretty much the game ends when someone fills up all 3 sects. So when you have 9 followers and 3 hierophants, the hierophants are the cultists that go on top and lead the individual sect, and the followers are the members of each sect that go on the bottom. So each cultist card is kind of cool because there's 42 different unique cultists, and there's also 4 quote-unquote bomb cards that you don't want to actually get. We'll go into those a little bit later, but those cards generally tend to be negative, and you're forced to play them when you draw them. Okay, but most cards, they have a follower worth at the bottom, and then they have a hierophant power that's more valuable at the top. But as you can see, you can only get 3 hierophants, so you want to choose who you play wisely. Additionally, each sect needs a hierophant to kind of start the sect off before you could play followers. So if you get a bunch of cards that you're like, I don't really want them to be my hierophants, you either have to keep drawing or you have to decide to pony up one as kind of the boss and then fill in at the bottom. Like I said, there's obviously cards that we looked at that allow you to swap positions of things. So it's not 100% permanent once you play a card, but generally they stay where you play them. The other thing about this crowdfunding campaign is that all of the different cultists, you can see we have 3 different ones. 2 are single alignment. 1 is a dual alignment card. They have different values too. These happen to just all be worth 3 tribute. But if we look over here, you also have followers worth 1 or 5 tribute. So going on with this is that if you pledge to become a cultist backer level, you can submit your photo and I will illustrate it in kind of the same vibe of this entire card deck, and you get to name your cultist, and so you get to become a cultist in this deck to be immortalized as part of the game for all time, which I think is kind of cool. That's something I've always wanted, so that's why I wanted to open that up for other people. So each card, let's just take Mikey, for example. Right now, all of the art is obviously just this like standard placeholder cultist, but it could be you. But Mikey, if I want to play him as a hierophant, I would just put the set card above it. And I could, like, if you want to see the art, you can see the art, or you could, like, move it up here if you have less space on your table. But now we know that Mikey is worth 2x the tribute of the first 2 followers in this sect. So then, on the next turn, if I were to play Ripley as the first follower, so Mikey is worth twice the tribute of the first 2 followers. So right now, Mikey is worth 6 because Ripley is worth 3 tribute as a follower. But if I added Becky underneath Ripley, then this whole sect would be worth 6 from these 2, and then another 6 from this hierophant. And so that's sort of how card placement in terms of the cultist works. You would play a god, and you could then say play an idol, and then each turn you're drawing from one of these 3 decks, or you're also drafting. So at the beginning of the game, you flip over a pool of X plus 1, meaning for the cultist, meaning number of players plus 1. So, this is a 2-player game, so there'd be a pool of 3. For the resource cards, there are just number of players, so X, and then god cards are always drawn blind. So pretty much the turn, you get 2 actions. You get a draw or draft action, so you could draw 2 cards face down from the cultist deck. You could draw 2 cards face down from the resource deck. You could draw 1 card face down from the god deck, or 1 card face up from the cultist deck, or 1 card face up from the resource deck. And so you get to make one of those actions as your draw card, and then you can either play a god, replace a god, you could play one of your resource cards, you could play a single cultist, and that's the game. And then you would discard down to 6. So an opening turn would be like, okay, I'm going to maybe draw 2 of these first. So I got Violet, which is, looks like I have a lot of blood, so I don't really have, I have a great idol. I don't really have a good god, though, because I actually lose tribute for blood cultists that I have in play, and flesh. So I drew 1 face down, so I'm going to draw my other one face down. And oh no, I have the Grifter. That sucks. So what happens is you must play this when drawn as a free action. So it doesn't take up one of my actions, but I have to play it, and it's worth 4 tribute. So this is a pretty bad card to draw in your opening hand because I can't play a cultist first, I would have to play it as a Hierophant. So the Grifter goes down here. That's not an action because it's a free action. I have 1 action left, and I think I will go ahead and imagine these are all in my hand. I just have them out so you can see. I'm going to play the Offering of Blood, and then since I'm pretty sure, I mean, I have so many blood cultists in my hand, I might just discard. I could discard the god, but I'm not going to yet. So I'm just going to discard Mikey because he's a madness cultist and doesn't really jive with what I'm doing. And then I pass to the next player. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple game to pick up. There are 7 different idols, 1 idol for each aspect, and 10 different types of event cards, 1 also being a sort of a bomb / negative card. So there's always the luck of the draw, and you kind of don't want to necessarily just say, oh, I just want to keep drafting as fast as I can and discarding. You do want to be a little bit strategic with how you're playing the game. And so that's Cult Crafter. There's 107 cards total, including the sect cards that'll come in a box. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. I hope this seemed like a cool, fun little game to play. Pretty casual. You can bring it in your pocket and just drop it down and get going building a cult. So yeah, if you have any other questions, definitely check out the link below to go to the BackerKit page. Drop a comment there, ask questions away, and thank you so much. I hope you are interested, and see you on the campaign. Thanks so much. Bye.